First, Denzel Washington teamed up with director Tony Scott to tell the story of John Creasy, protecting a very young Dakota Fanning in Man on Fire. Now, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is in the role of Creasy for Netflix's take on a series of the same name. Is this just rehashing the same story, or does it bring something fresh to our screens? Once a high-functioning and skilled Special Forces mercenary known for surviving even the most desolate of situations, John Creasy is now plagued with intense PTSD. Determined to overcome his personal demons, he sets out on a path to redemption. But before he can adjust to this new life, he finds himself back in the fire, fighting harder than ever to defend the family member of a colleague. So the story arc shares a lot in common with the 2004 film. The location has changed, but the rest, it's very similar in terms of plot. And while that may sound like it's just a refurbished character story, there is a certain newness to the way that this is presented. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is wonderful as Creasy. From the way he carries his body, to his reactions to sounds and memories, just so much of his countenance illustrates a man who is in deep need of help, both mentally and emotionally, and it consumes his entire being. Abdul-Mateen crafts Creasy to be downtrodden, defeated, tormented, someone who, even when given the chance of rest and recovery, balks at the offerings because his internal demons are just too powerful. But I also love that he isn't a complete mess of a person. I mean, yeah, he's depressed and traumatized, and he wants to be alone a lot of the time, but when faced with challenges, especially when they carry meaning, he steps up and then becomes the fierce and deadly warrior that he's trained as. If you've not seen the movie or haven't read the novels that the character is based on, I'm not going to spoil the central impetus for all of the events that take place within this series. But pretty early on in the 7-episode first season, Creasy has some extremely compelling reasons for getting involved in all the ensuing drama. The setting is Brazil, and it's probably no surprise that an action story like this revolves around powerful people who do very bad things, leading to Creasy needing to protect his friend's daughter from harm. Billy Bouillet plays Poe, the daughter of Creasy's friend, and I appreciate the toughness and grit that she gives the character. Poe isn't stoic with bulletproof emotions, but she's also not this wilting flower that trembles and collapses at the first sign of difficulty. And true to the teenager mindset, the character does make some dumb decisions, most of which always create havoc and danger. Now, this repeated behavior, it does run the risk of making Poe annoying or frustrating, but because of the chemistry that she shares with Creasy, the irritation, it's mainly minimized. But that does lead into the main storytelling shortcoming for the series. Many of the sequences are repeated scenarios, not in play-for-play actions, but within the general ideas and then the story beats. We'll watch a plan being hatched. Then in the middle of that adventure, someone is thwarted or put into extreme danger, forcing a firefight or hand-to-hand battle that ends with carnage, usually deaths, only to then have another character get themselves into a dangerous situation during a subsequent scheme, which then repeats the cycle. Now, I enjoyed the action because the violence it's captured well, using convincing fight choreography and an immense amount of ammunition and explosives. Now, these scenes are exciting, and they keep the adrenaline level high, but they also become repetitious just simply because we know the type of altercation that's about to arrive and what the outcome is pretty much going to entail. Abdul-Mateen can certainly handle himself in a fight. While he doesn't always nail every shot with a gun, he's extremely accurate, but it's the bare-knuckle punches that create the most frenzied fun. The opponents Creasy is typically up against, they're all formidable and not easily defeated, making the combat more of a fight for survival. And when the stakes are that high, brutality becomes a necessity, and the series doesn't shy away from some gnarly injuries. Now, the show also uses a rather large supporting cast, relieving some of the burden from Abdul-Mateen's shoulders just to carry the entire story. I liked several of the other cast, especially as they brought a needed level of humanity and compassion within a narrative that's filled with vengeful bloodshed. But on the flip side, the expanded cast also creates a lot of tangential interactions that run the risk of overcomplicating the plot rather than adding depth. I think overall the majority of the additional characters create a stronger and well-rounded arc, even contributing some extra tension, sometimes even humor. And while the episodes do move along at a quick-ish pace, the predictability of scenarios and setups, it does slow it down, at least perceptually. The feeling of deja vu, it's common because we really did experience something very similar in the previous episode, drawing out the storytelling in a manner that makes the entire experience longer than it actually is. And then there's the extreme obviousness of a certain plot point. While it's not telegraphed by the dialogue, it's way too familiar a plot device. So my guess is that you'll figure out a key answer almost from the get-go. And while it was disappointing that there wasn't more creativity in obscuring the reveal, I was still looking forward to what the ramifications would be and then how Creasy was going to deal with it. Now, from that aspect, it's satisfying, although one area is too quickly resolved, especially for the actions that led to this particular consequence. And I know that was vague, but it does to make total sense while you're watching the show. Now, the episodes, they're all about 45-ish minutes, with the final episode coming in an hour. This will take a good chunk of your day if you binge it, but despite the repeated scenarios, the show is pretty captivating. Overall, while Man on Fire doesn't really craft anything new within the story, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is wonderful as the mentally beaten and battered John Creasy. With engaging fight choreography and an abundance of savage violence, the action keeps excitement flowing through each episode. There is repetition within the story beats, leading to a longer than it is feeling, and many of the setups are predictably obvious. But despite that, the series can suck you in with the gut punch moments and the righteous pursuit of justice. And there may even be room for an additional season. I guess it just all depends on how this is received and binged. There's no sex or nudity, ton of profanity, then a lot of violence. I give Man on Fire 3.5 out of 5 couches. So have you caught any good action series lately? I'd love to get some recommendations in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.